Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something dangerous. You're about to vanish into the thick, tangled woods of medieval England Sherwood Forest, to be exact. Not for a cozy nature walk, no. You're running. From soldiers. From the law. From a world that wants you dead or chained. There's a bounty on your head already, and let's be honest, it's probably deserved. Or maybe it's just the sheriff being himself. Either way, your life as a free man is over. Now, you're something else entirely. You're Robin Hood. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crash through the underbrush, boots slamming against gnarled roots and wet leaves. Your breath fogs in the cool evening air. Behind you, the town guard is shouting, their mail clinking like wind chimes made of death. Your tunic's torn, your mouth tastes like blood, and every muscle in your legs screams, but you keep going. There's no turning back. Eventually, the sounds of pursuit fade. You slow down, stagger into a mossy clearing, and collapse at the base of an ancient oak tree. Welcome to Sherwood. This is not a fairy tale forest. It stinks. It's loud. Bugs everywhere. At night, it's darker than a coal miner's boots. The canopy is so thick it swallows moonlight. You hear things snapping branches, the eerie bark of a distant fox, and, unsettlingly often, silence. That kind of silence that makes your neck itch. You're being watched. Always. You're not the first fugitive here. Sherwood has been harbouring criminals, rebels, and runaways for centuries. Romans hated it. Saxons respected it. Normans feared it. And now, you inherit its shadows. You'll learn to live off its roots, its thickets, and sometimes its stolen livestock. That first night, you barely sleep. You wrap your cloak around yourself and shiver, using a tree's roots as a pillow. You think about bread, cheese, a dry bed. Instead, you get beetles crawling up your sleeve, and a thorn that stabs you in the neck every time you shift. Morning doesn't exactly improve things. You wake up hungry, sore, and surrounded by plants you can't name. Some look edible. Most look like they'll kill you with explosive diarrhea. Welcome to your new food pyramid. Roots, berries, and whatever dumb animal stumbles too close. You start small trapping rabbits. It's harder than it looks. You trip your own snares 5 times before finally catching something, and you have no clue how to clean it. You nearly gag, but hunger wins. It always does. You eat the meat, burnt on the outside, raw in the middle. Your stomach revolts. But congratulations, you've officially had your first outlaw breakfast. You spend the next week figuring out where not to step. Boggy ground sucks your boots off. Brambles rip your skin open. There's one area you learn to avoid entirely. The locals call it Dead Mare Hollow. No one agrees why. Some say it's cursed. Others say it's where the sheriff dumps bodies. Either way, you get a nosebleed just walking near it. You discover the ancient art of layering leaves and branches to make a half-decent shelter. It leaks. A lot. You spend one entire night just trying to keep your feet dry, using an old cloak and a vague hope that mold isn't fatal. You're alone for now, but not for long. Outlaws attract each other like fleas on a dog. Word travels fast. There's a lad in the woods, mad with arrows and faster than a deer. The rumours are flattering. You're mostly hungry and tired. But sure, let the legend grow. Soon, others start appearing, watching from the trees, sizing you up. A gaunt ex-soldier with one ear. A boy who claims he's stabbed 3 men but can't sharpen a knife. A woman disguised as a man who bests you in a stick fight. They stay hidden for days, testing you. You test them back. By the 2nd month, the forest is your skin. You hear every rustle. You know where the deer sleep and where the river floods. You've marked 5 escape routes in case of ambush. And you've carved a symbol into a tree or sign. A warning, a welcome, depends who's looking. You've changed. You speak less, walk quieter, think sharper. That city boy with the soft hands and pipe dreams, he's gone. You've replaced him with someone leaner, angrier, smarter. Historians still argue whether Sherwood Forest was ever as dense or large as legend claims, or whether the whole Robin Hood story is a mashup of various rebels over centuries. But whatever truth hides beneath those leaves, one thing is certain. Surviving here is no picnic. And yet, here you are. Not just surviving, but learning. adapting, becoming. You are no longer merely hiding from the law. You're building something, a new life, a new code, and maybe, just maybe, a new name that'll echo beyond the trees. They find you before you find them, or rather, they let you think that. One morning you wake to a knife pressed gently against your throat, not deep enough to break skin, but firm enough to ruin your mood. The blade's edge is chipped. Its owner smells like sweat and wet leather. Nice shelter? He grunts, glancing at the pile of leaves you call a bed. Mind if I borrow it? Permanently? You don't answer. You don't breathe. But your fingers tighten around the slingshot you kept tucked under your blanket of moss. He doesn't see it. One flick, a pebble to the temple, and he stumbles. You leap. You both roll through the muck, wrestling like wild dogs, until finally you've got him pinned. You don't kill him. Instead, you ask his name. That's how you meet Will. He's not alone. His crew waits in the shadows, 3 others, each rougher than the last. There's Red Tom, whose nose is permanently broken, Bess, who could kill you with a frying pan and a dirty look, and Little Ned, who's huge. The nickname is some sort of joke. It's not very funny. They circle you like wolves. You're outnumbered, but you're not outmatched. You've learned how to stand still, to watch without blinking. You make them uncomfortable with your calm. And that's when you realize, out here, reputation is currency. Fear is armor. You don't ask to join them. You challenge them. A contest archery. Winner takes the forest. You notch your best arrow and step 10 paces back from a moss-covered stump. One shot. Center hit. Bess goes next close, but not enough. Little Ned's arrow breaks his bowstring. Will grins. You nod. Just once. He lowers his weapon. And just like that, your gang begins. Building a brotherhood in the forest isn't like starting a book club. There's no tea, no biscuits, no polite conversation. Trust comes slowly measured in blood, bruises, and the nights you don't stab each other in your sleep. Your camp starts as a loose scattering of lean-tos. Everyone sleeps with one eye open. But over time, you build something better. You dig a pit for cooking, you lash together a lookout perch in the trees, and you designate a toilet tree, because, well, hygiene. Sort of. Each person brings something to the group. Will is the planner, cautious, strategic, always scribbling charcoal maps on tree bark. Bess is muscle and morale. She sings while sharpening her knives. Red Tom? He's a terrible liar and a worse cook, but his laugh is contagious. And Little Ned? Turns out he can throw a spear hard enough to knock down a deer. You hold drills in the clearing combat practice, escape plans, code words, when to vanish, when to stand your ground. You assign lookout shifts. No one likes them, but they work. One morning, Red Tom spots a tax agent's convoy trundling down the path. Gold, heavily guarded, but poorly planned. You move to intercept. You wait until dusk, hide in a thicket. One guard relieves himself off the road. He's your first target. You sneak behind, club him with a sapling branch, and drag his body into the brush. Will and Bess charge the front wagon. You fire from the trees. The ambush takes 20 seconds. The sheriff's men scream, flail, then flee. You don't kill anyone. That's the rule. Not yet. Instead, you tie them up with their own belts and leave them beside the road with a note carved into bark. Tax US again, and you'll pay interest. You split the haul. Silver coins, dried fish, 2 loaves of nearly fresh bread, and oddly a hand mirror with an ivory handle. Bess keeps it. That night, you eat like lords. You laugh around the fire. Even Red Tom's stew tastes good, and for the first time, someone calls you Captain. You don't correct them. But being a leader means more than planning raids. You keep peace. You settle disputes. When Ned and Tom argue over sleeping space, you draw a line in the dirt and say, "Fight if you must, but make it quick." They both back off. Not because you're terrifying, but because your stare says, "I've been alone in these woods. I'm not scared of silence. Or of you." You decide on rules. No robbing the poor. No harming children. No drunken stupidity near the camp. And anyone who breaks them? Exile. No questions. Everyone agrees. One night, a stranger stumbles into your clearing. A boy, maybe 13, pale, shaking, eyes wide with hunger and fear. You give him stew, no questions. Later he tells you he was running from a baron who beat his mother to death over unpaid rent. Your gang goes quiet. You tell the boy he can stay. Next week, 5 more like him show up. Historians still argue whether Robin Hood's band really swelled with refugees and orphans or if that's just posthumous PR. But in your camp, the numbers grow. The stories grow faster. They say you rob nobles with one eye shut, that you can shoot a wasp from a mile away, that you're 7 feet tall. Red Tom adds fuel to the fire by claiming you once punched a wolf. You didn't. It was a badger, and it bit you. But the myth has power. It protects you. The forest begins to whisper your name first with awe, then fear. The sheriff notices, and so do the lords. You've built something. A fellowship, an army, a family, all of them armed, all of them angry, all of them ready to bleed for a cause they barely understand but that you're starting to believe in. And for the first time, you wonder, what if this isn't just survival? What if this is justice? You never meant to fall in love with a weapon, but the first time your fingers wrap around the U-grip of a longbow, it's over. She's tall, sleek, and lethal. Nearly 6 feet of curved potential. The bow hums with stored power. The string thrums like a harp string after the note dies. You're not holding a tool. You're holding a promise. Bess finds it for you, hidden in a noble's fallen supply cart. Try not to stab yourself, she says with a smirk. You smirk back, then notch an arrow and aim for the stub of a tree limb 100 feet away. You draw. Your arms tremble. Your breath freezes. And when you release, the arrow hisses and buries itself dead center. Lucky shot, Will mutters, but you're already reloading. You train every day. You fire until your shoulders ache and your fingers blister. Then you fire some more. In time, your blisters become calluses. Your breathing slows. Your aim sharpens. You can shoot standing, crouching, lying down. Even while tumbling down a slope, you become a ghost, with wingsolent, fast, invisible, until it's too late. But the longbow is no beginner's toy. This isn't a kid's branch bender from summer camp. The average medieval longbow takes 100 to 150 pounds of force to pull. It's taller than most men, carved from single slabs of yew. You need real strength back. Shoulders, arms, soul. In fact, archers in England were deformed by practice. Their skeletons grew lopsided from years of pulling. Modern researchers have dug up medieval archer remains and noted warped spines and thickened shoulder bones. That's you now, reshaped by the bow. The forest bends you to its will. Soon, you're crafting arrows with obsessiveness that borders on madness. You debate fletching types like a sommelier describing wine, goose feather or swan, tri-fletched or helical. You steal an ironwood shaft from a travelling peddler and nearly weep when it splits clean. The right arrow can pierce chainmail. The wrong one glances off and gets you killed. Every member of your crew gets a bow. Even little Ned, though his looks comically small in his hands. You hold group trainings in a half-cleared glade where hay bales serve as targets. You don't just shoot for accuracy, you shoot for silence, for speed, for shadow. One drill you invent. No arrows loosed unless the wind's in your favour. Another, draw and fire without speaking, just glancing. Bess calls it death by eyebrow. Of course, you aren't only armed with bows. Daggers, cudgels, spears, they're all part of your ensemble. But nothing terrifies your enemies quite like the flutter of black-fletched shafts descending from the trees. One noble swears the sky rained death on him after he denied food to a starving village. You didn't mean to traumatize him, but you're also not sorry. One of your proudest moments comes during a rescue. A farmer's son has been arrested for poaching rabbits, yes, rabbits. You send Will and Red Tom to scout the guardhouse. 2 men outside, 3 within. You climb a tree, sling your quiver across your back, and wait for the signal. A whistle, then chaos. Your first arrow slices through the air and nails a guard's leg before he can even shout. The second pins his cloak to the wall. The third is just for fun. You shoot his helmet clean off, and it clangs like a gong. The poor man faints. You never enter the building. You don't have to. Will bursts in, knives drawn, while you rain arrows like punctuation marks. The boy is freed. The message is sent. You're not just thugs, you're precise, tactical, dangerous. And weirdly enough, your archery gets attention beyond the underworld. Some locals whisper you trained with Saracens during the Crusades. Others say you're an ex-royal archer who snapped. Historians still argue whether Robin Hood was ever a soldier under King Richard, or even if the longbow itself was widely used before the 14th century. But in your time, in this story, the longbow is your lover, your voice, your vengeance. One evening, a noble's daughter is caught spying on your training. She doesn't scream, just watches, fascinated. You lower your bow. "You want to learn?" you ask. She nods. You teach her, and she's terrifyingly good. You never get her real name only, Marion. She keeps her identity secret, her face half covered, and her laugh guarded. But she shoots like a hawk in flight. You don't trust her, not fully, but you trust her aim. That's something. You start to choreograph ambushes like dances. One of your new tricks, the arrow chorus. 5 shooters fire simultaneously from 5 directions, all targeting the same torch in a guard's hand. Poof. Darkness. Panic. In the mayhem, your crew slips in, takes what it needs, and vanishes again. To outsiders, it's magic. To you, it's just training. You carve tally marks into the shaft of your bow, not kills. Never kills but saves. Each one a life freed, a noble disgraced, a meal stolen from the rich and passed to the poor. The count climbs fast. Still, you're careful. One mistake, one missed shot, and it could all crumble. You keep a secret stash of arrows hidden in hollow trees. You test the wind with a feather before every ambush. You carve bowstrings from horsehair and gut, always keeping 3 spares. The bow never lies. If it fails, it's your fault. One night, while perched in a tree, you watch the moonlight catch the arc of your weapon. It gleams like silver. You smile. There's poetry in this weapon. And poetry, for once, is useful. The sheriff has a new plan. Bigger caravans, more guards, better armor, horses with chainmail saddles, crossbows bristling from wagon sides like porcupine quills. He's trying to smoke you, outforce you to make a mistake, push you into a frontal assault you can't possibly win. But you're Robin Hood. You don't play by his rules. You wait until a caravan hits the southern pass, a narrow gully overgrown with nettles and briars. You let them see a decoy, a cloaked figure dashing through the trees. They take the bait. Horses charge, men shout, the formation breaks. And that's when the vines snap. Ropes pull tight across the path. Horses stumble. Wheels shear off the axles. Red Tom leaps from a tree and smashes a clay pot of bees across a guard's helmet. Chaos. Glorious, stinging chaos. You drop from the canopy, knock, and fire 3 arrows in 5 seconds. Not to kill, just to disable. Knees, arms, swords fly from numb fingers. You swoop in, slice open the canvas tarp, and uncover linens, and candlesticks. You blink. Wrong caravan. Behind you, someone groans. A guard clutches his side, glaring. You sigh. Tell your master. You say, "Next time, label the gold better." You disappear into the woods. It's not always elegant. Sometimes you rob a noble's cart and find nothing but live chickens and barrels of pickled herring. Sometimes you interrupt a wedding procession, only to realize the couple is poor, terrified, and already more miserable than you could ever make them. In those cases, you give them coin. That's part of your code. Steal from the rich. Only the rich. Still, not everyone sees the difference. To the crown, you're just another brigand, a criminal. The sheriff puts your name on parchment, hangs it in every tavern. Wanted, Robin of the Woods, dead or alive. Reward, 50 shillings. 50 shillings? You feel insulted. Bess mutters they should at least offer a horse. Will suggests inflating the rumours. Tell folks you robbed a bishop's mistress. You laugh but consider it. Myths are tools. You plan bigger raids. No more random hits. You study maps, build informant networks. A peddler in the town square hears about a secret convoy carrying tax revenue straight from Nottingham to York. That's real money. Enough to feed half the shire. Enough to build a network. Enough to matter. You track the route for days. Little Ned digs pit traps. Marion poisons the guard dogs' meat just enough to make them sleepy. And when the moment comes, you hit them like thunder. Smoke bombs blind. Arrows rain. A hidden log swings from the trees, shattering the lead wagon. Guards scramble, slipping in oil-slicked mud. One calls for help and gets a mouthful of nettles. You seize the gold, vanish into the trees, and are gone before the sheriff can finish his supper. The aftermath is glorious. The village of Stonethrow wakes to find bags of grain, smoked meat, and a small pile of silver in their square tied with green ribbon. Your ribbon. A beggar sings about it that evening in the local alehouse. By morning, the song has spread. Historians still argue whether the whole rob from the rich, give to the poor routine was real, or just romantic legend layered onto a bandit's life. But in your world, it's real, tangible. You see children with full bellies, old women with new boots, peasants with enough coin to bribe the guards away from their doors. But you also see betrayal. One night, you'll look out a nervous lad named Giles doesn't show. You send Red Tom to find him. He returns pale, trembling. They got him, he says. They turned him. The sheriff doesn't storm the forest with trumpets. He sends spies, whisperers, coins for tongues. They poison wells, sabotage arrows, light fires just outside camp. You start sleeping with your dagger drawn. Then one morning, you wake to the smell of smoke. Camp is ablaze, tents collapsing, supplies melting. You haul Bess out of a burning lean-to, shouting orders, barking commands. The sheriff's men rush in from three sides, swords drawn. It's a trap, but you're ready. Marion looses a flare arrow your signal. Will and Ned spring from the riverbed, knocking over a flaming log barrier. You retreat into the stream, soaking boots, hiding tracks. One man tries to follow you, take him down with a single shot, the arrow slicing his sword belt clean off. You escape, but barely. The forest takes you back, soot in your hair, blood on your sleeve. Your camp is gone, but your crew, alive. That night, huddled in a new clearing, you make a decision. No more playing nice. Next time, you'll rob the sheriff himself. You've heard he travels with a locked chest and 2 guards. Just 2. Too arrogant to expect a visit from Robin Hood. You wait till the 3rd Thursday. Ambush him mid-meal. He screams. Loud. You take the gold. You take his boots. You leave him tied to a stump with a daisy chain around his hat. Word spreads like fire in dry grass. The sheriff triples the bounty. Now it's 200 shillings, dead or alive. You're flattered, and a little bored. Time for something bigger. The trick to robbing nobles isn't the ambush, it's the timing. Rich folk love drama. They travel in pageants, with trumpets and banners and that weird goat with bells tied to its horns. You don't hit them on the open road. Too messy. Too many witnesses. You hit them in the forest, in the rain, when the guards are tired and the wheels are mudlogged and the noble is too grumpy to scream. That's when you pounce. One of your best scores starts with a rumour from a travelling tinkersome silk-wrapped bishop is on his way to a hunting lodge, carrying gifts for a duke's wedding. That alone doesn't interest you. But when the tinker mentions there's a chest, guarded by men who look like they've never actually fought, your ears perk up. Soft hands, fat purses, low risk, high reward. You spend a week preparing. You mark the route with charcoal arrows on stones only your crew would recognise. You have Will scout ahead and set up fake roadblocks. Bess and little Ned dig a pit under a patch of leaves so convincing it makes you nervous just looking at it. You station yourself in a tree just above the tight bend near the widow's elm. Perfect visibility, perfect draw range. They arrive right on schedule. Velvet drapes over the cart, guards yawning. The bishop himself, rosy-cheeked and half-drunk, already reclines like he's in a painting. You whistle low, twice. Will fires the flare. A cloud of startled birds explodes from the trees. The horses spook. The driver curses. One wheel hits the camouflaged pit and drops with a crunch. The cart lurches sideways, spilling crates and screaming guards. And then, silence. You drop from the branch like a falling leaf. Arrow already knocked. The bishop starts to sputter some Latin prayer, but you hold up a hand. Save it, your holiness. God's not here, but I am. You crack open the chest, expecting coin. You find bolts of silk, 2 silver chalices, a bottle of perfume labelled Unicorn's Kiss, and something wrapped in red velvet. You peel it back. A gold crucifix the size of a baby's head, encrusted with gems. Jackpot. The bishop tries to protest, claims it's a gift for the duke, that it was blessed personally by the Pope. I'll be sure to thank him, you reply, pocketing the perfume. You leave the bishop tied up but unharmed, dangling from a branch like a sausage. Marion adds a little tag. Thank you for your donation. R.H. You take the loot to a nearby abbey. The monks there are barely scraping by, feeding sick children with beetroot soup and crumbs. You hand them the silver chalices and crucifix without a word. Their eyes go wide. One kneels and kisses your hand. You feel strange. That's not why you did it. You tell yourself that. But still, a week later, a travelling minstrel sings about the holy thief who robs God to feed the hungry. You groan. Will laughs. Marion smirks and says, "You're welcome, St. Robin. Not all jobs go smoothly. Some go sideways so fast you barely remember them as anything but bruises and apologies. Like the time you stopped what you thought was a noble's gold shipment, only to find it was carrying plague medicine. You immediately turned it back over and apologized profusely to the terrified apothecary. You even escorted it to its destination, then vanished before he could thank you. That night, you burned your gloves. Or the time Red Tom drank a whole bottle of Unicorn's Kiss and spent the next 12 hours convinced he was an owl. You start getting braver. You begin robbing inside towns. That's a whole different game. You leave your forest camouflage behind and dress like a common Erif tunic, worn boots, maybe even a potato sack slung over your shoulder. Marion perfects the disguise. She teaches you how to smear ash under your eyes, how to hunch your back just right, how to limp convincingly enough that guards ignore you entirely. Inside town walls, you watch, you map, you learn. One noblewoman wears pearls even to the butcher's stall. Another keeps her purse tied too loosely. You don't rob the desperate. You rob the oblivious, the cruel, the ones who walk past beggars like they're lampposts. One day, you cut the purse from a knight so lost in boasting he doesn't even notice. Inside, 12 silver coins and a note from a mistress named Beatrice. You give the coins to an old woman who's lost her husband to the sheriff's prison. You keep the note, not out of spite. It just made you laugh. But with every success, the risks grow. Word spreads. You're not just a nuisance now. You're a symbol. That's what terrifies them most. One noble writes a letter to the king. This Robin Hood foments rebellion with every arrow. He is more dangerous than 1,000 swords. You kind of like that. Might put it on a banner. But the sheriff isn't writing letters. He's setting traps. He lures you with fake convoys. He plants decoys dressed like merchants. He even tries to use children leaving a fake orphan sobbing on the roadside. Marion smells it instantly. You follow her lead. It's a good thing too. When she pulls back the boy's cloak, he's not a child. He's a grown man with a dagger, and 3 more hiding in the bushes. You tie them up and leave them dangling from a tree labelled, "Try harder." They don't like that. The next trap is worse. You hear a rumour of a secret treasure being moved 4 wagons, travelling at dusk, no guards. It's too good to resist. You gather the crew. You move in. You strike. And they're waiting. Not 4 wagons. 4 decoys. Hidden archers. Spikes underfoot. A net drops from above. You get caught by the edge of it, dragged down. Bess is screaming. Little Ned throws a man clear over a cart. Marion is bleeding. You fire blind, arrows snapping against armour. Somehow, you break free. You retreat under the cover of smoke. But Red Tom doesn't make it. They hang him in the square 2 days later. As a warning, they put a sign around his neck. Thief! You sneak in that night and cut him down. You bury him where the river bends. You mark the tree with a small red ribbon. No words. The crew grows quieter. Less laughter. More watching the dark. Still, you don't stop. You can't stop. The poor still need help. The nobles still feed themselves like kings while villagers starve under taxes meant to fund banquets. So you keep robbing. You keep giving. You keep running. You're not just a thief now. You're an idea. And ideas are hard to kill. By now, your name isn't just whispered, it's woven. Into songs, into bedtime stories, into half-hopeful curses when mothers can't afford bread. Maybe Robin Hood will come, they mutter as they tighten belts around hollow stomachs. It's strange, really. You're still sleeping in dirt, still using wet leaves as napkins, still dodging arrows meant for your spine butt out there. You're becoming something more than a man. You're a symbol. You're the dream of justice in a time built on cruelty. Villagers start helping you. Quietly, subtly. One leaves you fresh bread inside a hollow log. Another draws a crude map in charcoal under a barn door, showing when the sheriff's patrol will pass by. A child hands you a ribbon the colour of moss and says, "For luck, sir." You wear it tied around your wrist for a month. They tell your stories before you even live them. One says you leapt a river 10 paces wide. Another swears you caught an arrow in midair. Bess nearly chokes on her stew, laughing. They think you're some green-cloaked god, she wheezes. You chuckle, but the weight of it sinks in. People believe in you. They need to. They're clinging to you like ivy on old stone. Of course, not everyone sees you as a hero. To the sheriff, you're a tumor. He rants in court, veins bulging, vowing to pluck this forest filth from the king's clean land. He doesn't see peasants. He sees tax revenue on legs. And you? You're the one standing between him and his next promotion. He doubles his bounty on your head again. 200 shillings. Then 3. He starts arresting anyone, even suspected of aiding you old women, beggars, farmers. If they won't give up the hooded outlaw, he bleeds them dry. Some die for it. That's when it hits you. This isn't just about gold. It's about fear. Your robberies strike their purses, but your existence strikes their order. You make people dream of freedom, and nothing threatens power like hope. You adjust your tactics. No more random ambushes. Now your strikes are chosen, deliberate, symbolic. When a noble is caught beating a servant, you hang his silk gloves on the village gallows and leave a note. For every lash, we take a hand. When a baron doubles his taxes, you steal his silver and fill his fountains with turnips. When the sheriff builds a new toll road, you burn the toll booth to the ground and leave a trail of green feathers from its ruins to his front gate. Soon, the nobles are terrified of you, paranoid, fuming, wearing chainmail to dinner and sleeping with knives under their pillows. And yet, your actions are precise, surgical. You've created your own morality. You don't kill unless there's no other way. You don't rob the poor. You give more than you take. You're not lawless. You're anti-law, which is very different. Your crew begins to shift too. More than thieves now. They're teachers, guards, medics. Will trains new recruits how to climb trees without snapping branches. Marion teaches orphans to track game and light fires without smoke. Even little Ned starts tutoring local boys in slingshot technique. He uses cabbages. Occasionally, a squirrel. One winter morning, you find a message burned into bark near the North River Bend. Just 3 words. We need you. That's it. No name, no location, but you understand. You follow deer trails, cross 2 icy streams, and come upon a village silent as a grave. No smoke from chimneys, no dogs barking, just a pale woman standing in the square with tears in her eyes. She points to a manor on the hill. The baron there demanded double grain. When the people refused, he locked the gates and let them starve. Some of the children are already gone. You don't wait. That night, you sneak into the manor wearing servant rags. Marion comes in as a travelling seamstress. Bess plays the cook's assistant. You poison their wine not lethally, just enough to knock them unconscious long enough for you to load 2 carts with food, blankets and medicine. You roll them downhill under moonlight, and before dawn, the village is feasting on stolen meat by a roaring fire. The baron wakes up, tied to his own bed, with feathers glued to his face and a sign that says, "Pigs eat better than peasants." Historians still argue whether you were one man or several, whether Robin Hood was a myth, a movement, or just wishful thinking carved into oak and retold over mead. But there's no debate about this. Someone was out there doing what kings refused to. Someone gave the powerless a slingshot in a world ruled by war horses. Your enemies start sending spies into your camp again poorly, disguised as wandering monks or herb pickers. One tries to charm Marion. He ends up tied naked to an anthill. That's what I call divine punishment. Bess jokes. Marion just smirks. The crew is tight now, tighter than ever. You finish each other's sentences. You can read their faces by firelight. You share dreams. Red Tom's death still lingers, but it hardened your resolve. You keep his hat hung above the weapons rack, a silent reminder of what this costs. One day, you're approached by a stranger hooded, smooth-spoken, with polished boots and soft hands. He offers you a deal. Gold, a pardon, a place at the king's court. All you have to do is disband. Stop interfering. Let the lords govern. There are better ways to make change, he says, smiling. You stare at him. Then you spit on his boots. Later, you hear he was one of Prince John's envoys. That's when you realize your story's gone national. The king himself is beginning to hear whispers. About the outlaw who makes noblemen tremble. About a hidden army growing in Sherwood. About a leader who's not seeking power but balance. The pressure grows. You feel it in your bones. The forest feels thinner, the air tighter. Danger doesn't creep anymore. It looms. But you're not running, because you remember what it was like before all this. You remember the hunger, the injustice, the fear, and you remember how it felt to finally fight back, not with rage but with purpose. You're Robin Hood. You live in a world of wolves and wolves in cloaks, and you've made yourself into a thorn in their throat. You don't know how long you'll last. But tonight, you sleep well, because somewhere, a starving family eats bread because of you, because a widow has firewood stacked by her door, because a child believes that if they are ever wronged, someone might come for them in the night. Someone wearing green. You once thought you'd always be alone in these woods, skulking from tree to tree like a ghost without a name. But now, the forest hums with voices, laughter, even the occasional shouting match over who's hogging the cooking pot. Your little band of outlaws has become a full-blown family rough-edged, scrappy, and bound together by something stronger than blood, choice. And with every new face that joins you, that choice becomes more complicated. Friar Tuck is the first true surprise. He wanders into your camp, humming, barefoot, and carrying a flask large enough to drown in. At first, you think he's lost, or mad, or both. He insists God led him to you. Marion raises a skeptical eyebrow. Bess bets he won't last a week. He lasts 4 years. Tuck isn't what you expect in a man of the cloth. He drinks. He swears under his breath. He once punched a tax collector straight into a duck pond. But he listens. More than Thaith understands. And when he talks about justice, he does it without waving a book in your face. Christ didn't charge rent, he mutters one night while ladling soup into the bowls of 3 orphans. Why should the sheriff? He becomes your conscience, in a way. Not a voice of caution, but of clarity. Help the weak, he says. Fight the cruel, and don't waste arrows on fools, they're endless. Then there's Marion. From the beginning she's different, sharp as a tack, quieter than the others, but always watching. You've never quite figured her out. She tells stories of noble life with a smirk, like she's mocking it from the inside. She ties her hair back with twine, and shoots better than most men you've ever met. There's rumor she's the daughter of some disgraced lord. She never confirms it. She never denies it either. What's clear is this: she's dangerous. Not in the knife, to the throat way, but in the way someone can crawl into your mind and take root. She doesn't ask to be treated differently. She pulls her weight, carries her own gear. She's the one who finds you after a scouting mission goes wrong and you're bleeding under a briar bush. She patches your wound, grits her teeth, and says, "You're not allowed to die. I've got a bet running." The next morning she's back to smirking, but she's never far from your side after that. And the others? They change too. Will Scarlet starts carving tiny figurines from birch wood. He leaves them in the trees like little guardian spirits. Little Ned takes up whittling spoons, for reasons no one understands. Bess starts singing lullabies she swears she learned from her mother, though half of them involve pirates and snakes. Your camp begins to resemble a small village. You build better shelters, woven walls, thatched roofs, even raised walkways in the trees for faster escapes. You construct a signal system. 3 knocks on wood, a whistle downwind, a hawk's cry for danger. It becomes second nature. And the newcomers keep coming. A blacksmith who fled debtors. A runaway scribe who can forge documents so convincing they once passed as royal decrees. A mother and her 2 daughters who arrive with nothing but a sack of beans and a story about escaping a noble's dungeon. You give them space. You give them food. And eventually, you give them purpose. The forest becomes your fortress, your nation. But with more people come more problems. Disputes flare. Someone steals from the group storehouse. Someone else blames Will for drinking more than his share. There's shouting, tears, a broken nose. You settle it all with a steady voice and a blunt truth. This is not a game. We survive together, or not at all. You build a code spoken, then etched onto a wooden plank near the fire. No harming the weak, no robbing the poor, no secrets that risk the group. It's not perfect, but it's yours. Still, danger creeps in like mold, even among friends. One evening you find a satchel buried just outside camp. Inside, coins. Not many, but enough. and a tiny scrap of parchment bearing your name, drawn with an arrow through the O. You recognize it immediately. It's your mark, but you didn't make it. Someone's copying you. At first you're flattered, then angry, then scared. Imposters claiming your name are robbing anyone without care. Rich, poor, sick, doesn't matter. They're tarnishing your symbol. People start whispering that Robin Hood stole from a healer or burned a church's barn. You dispatch Marion and Bess to track the imposters. They find two by moonlight, young, cocky, desperate. They're not cruel, just lost. They wanted to be like you. They thought it was easy. You don't kill them. You teach them and send them off with a warning. Call yourselves anything you want, you say. But not me. This name comes with rules. Historians still argue whether there were multiple Robin Hood's different men in different times, each taking up the name like a banner. Some even suggest Robin Hood was never a person at all, but a shared identity used by rebels to confound their enemies. If that's true, you're just the beginning, or maybe the middle. But to the people around you, you're the Robin, no one else. You begin to understand the power of your own myth. It's not just about robbing carriages and dodging arrows anymore. It's about what you represent, to your crew, to the villages, even to strangers who've never seen your face. You're not just stealing gold now, you're stealing fear, and giving people something else instead. The weight of that grows heavier every day. You still laugh around the fire, still tell jokes about the time little Ned got chased by a goose, but there's a tension underneath, a knowledge that the world is watching you now, that the sheriff's noose is tightening, that any day could be the day it snaps closed. But you don't run. You've built something here. Not just a gang, not just a camp. You've built a family. And in this forest, family doesn't break. You don't ask to get involved in royal politics. You'd much rather keep things simple. Rob the baron, feed the peasant, vanish into the trees. But power doesn't stay on its side of the forest. It creeps in, slow and poisonous, through the mouths of messengers and the rustle of parchment. It starts with rumours whispers passed by monks, murmured by traders. King Richard is gone, captured, held for ransom somewhere across the sea. The forest stiffens with the news. Prince John's younger brother has taken the reins in his absence, and the reins are tight. Taxes soar. Soldiers march with new emblems. The sheriff becomes more than just a local problem. He's now a gear in a machine with ambitions far beyond Nottinghamshire. And you've just gone from a thorn in his side to a nail in the prince's heel. One evening, Friar Tuck reads the ransom aloud by firelight. 150,000 marks, he says, voice low. Enough to bankrupt every village from here to the coast. You exhale slowly. That kind of money doesn't just appear. It's squeezed from the backs of peasants, sold in livestock, collected from sickbeds and funeral jars. Prince John has no intention of paying it quickly. The longer Richard stays gone, the more firmly John can settle his oily hands around the throne. And so, you find yourself pulled into something larger. This isn't just about feeding the poor anymore. It's about preserving what little justice remains. Because if John keeps power, the land won't just suffer, it'll rot. Your first brush with royal entanglement comes in the form of a pale, limping knight named Sir Godfrey. He arrives half dead, his armour dented, horse bleeding, eyes burning with a mission. You shelter him. Marion tends his wounds. Tuck murmurs prayers and pours something smoky into the man's mouth. When he wakes, Godfrey tells you he's one of Richard's loyal men, or was. He says he's seen the prince's allies hunted down, one by one. John is paranoid, ruthless, and entirely sober about what he wants. A crown, no matter who he tramples. And Robin Hood? You're now on a list. Godfrey offers you a deal. Help smuggle a message to Richard's allies, a broad proof that loyal men still stand, hidden and resisting. You're hesitant. It's one thing to rob wagons, quite another to commit treason. But then he shows you a letter, signed and sealed. Inside, the names of villages you know, marked for pillage, people you've fed, defended, laughed with. You fold the letter and nod once. So begins your covert war. You plan the route with Will, careful to avoid roads and known checkpoints. Marion scouts the river for a barge. Bess and Ned pose as traders, smuggling supplies under sacks of turnips. It feels like an old game, but the stakes are new. One mistake, and you don't just lose gold. You lose everyone. The message reaches Richard's allies. A reply comes months later, tucked in the boot of a traveller. 2 words, hold fast. It's not much, but it means everything. You start gathering information. Royal tax ledgers, guard rotations, court secrets. You build a network. Monks become messengers. Washerwomen pass messages hidden in soapcloths. One noble's daughter sends a map inked between the lines of a love poem. Historians still argue whether Robin Hood ever played a role in national politics, whether he truly fought for Richard, or if that's just propaganda layered over a criminal's head. But you know the truth. You never asked to be in this war, but war came anyway. And in wartime, the rules change. You begin targeting John's sympathizers, not just for gold but to unravel their reach. You sabotage their supply trains, intercept their messages. One convoy carries chained prisonersmen accused of disloyalty. You ambush it with ruthless precision, break their chains, and vanish before the guards can recover. That night, the freedmen sit around your fire, eyes wide, hands shaking. One of them is a former lord stripped of title for questioning John's authority. He tells you the prince is building alliances with foreign mercenaries, that he's planning to crown himself within the year. You look at your band of misfits and mud-stained rebels, and you realize this forest might be the last free land in England. The sheriff tightens his grip. He raids villages that whisper your name. He hangs your allies from trees. He burns fields as warnings. You retaliate in kind. When he builds a garrison near the northern pass, you set fire to it in the middle of the night. When he captures a healer who once treated Will's wounds, you exchange him for 3 of his own men trussed up and delivered like pigs. Each move you make now echoes louder than before. You feel the game changing, the board growing, and with it, the danger. A spy is caught in camp. This one gets close. Too close. He's been with you for weeks shelping, laughing, learning. You find his signal flares buried in his satchel. Marion finds his second knife hidden in his boot. He begs for mercy. You grant it. But you exile him. That night, you move camp again. Twice. Tuck doesn't speak for 2 days after that. But not all new arrivals are traitors. One night, a cloaked figure enters your camp alone, carrying a banner, red, stitched with a golden lion, royal. She removes her hood and introduces herself as Lady Eleanor, an envoy of Queen Eleanor, Richard's mother. She's been following your actions for months, she says, and now she has a request. Keep the pressure on, she says. Keep John looking over his shoulder. Richard is returning. You ask when. She just smiles. Soon. Soon isn't specific, but it's hope, and that's enough. Your forest becomes more than a hideout. It becomes a resistance hub, a training ground, a message board. Villages send supplies. Farmers send sons. Nobles secretly sympathetic send coin, tucked in casks of ale. You're no longer just robbing. You're recruiting. You're organizing. And the sheriff? He's beginning to lose. The forest changes when winter comes. The leaves fall like gold coins spilling from a broken chest, then rot into black mush beneath your boots. Trees become skeletons bare, brittle, and echoing the wind like old bones whispering secrets. The stream turns to a cruel trickle of ice, and your once soft beds of moss freeze into mats of frost-rimed misery. You thought you were tough. Winter teaches you that you are just comfortable. The cold bites into your bones like a tax collector's dagger. Everything slows down your hands, your thoughts, even the way your breath clouds up in front of your face before vanishing. You learn to sleep with a knife pressed against your chest and your boots on, because if you take them off, you might never get them back on. They'll freeze solid before you can say outlaw. Food becomes your daily obsession. Hunting is harder. The deer have either migrated or learned to outwit you. Traps come up empty more often than not. You resort to boiling tree bark, chewing lichen, and fighting crows over frozen crab apples. One time, Bess spears a half-rotted fish, and you all cheer like it's a festival feast. Tuck blesses it. You eat it anyway. You ration the supplies left by villagers in the fall salted meat, root vegetables, jars of pickled who knows what, but even that runs low. Will starts eyeing the turnip stew like it owes him money. Marion begins skipping meals, passing hers to the younger ones without a word. You set traps for rabbits but catch foxes. Tough, stringy, desperate meat. You eat it anyway. It's not just hunger. The cold plays tricks. It brings a silence that feels heavier than any armor. Conversations taper off. Jokes fall flat. The campfire becomes the center of your entire universe. And when the wind blows it sideways, Everyone stares like it's the last bit of hope left. Little Ned coughs blood one morning. Not a lot, but enough to make you shift from discomfort to worry. Tuck checks his gums, his breath, mutters something about swamp lung. It sounds made up, but the concern in his voice is very real. You send Marion to fetch herbs from a village healer 2 miles out. She returns late, soaked, furious, and covered in bramble scratches but with the herbs. You boil them into a tea. Ned keeps coughing, but he smiles. You count that as a win. Then come the storms. Not the romantic kind that rattle shutters and inspire poems. These are brutal, howling things that tear trees from the ground and lash your face with freezing sleet. Your shelters collapse. You huddle in a pit you dig by hand, 3 bodies deep, using cloaks as walls and each other's breath for warmth. During one particularly cruel night, the snow piles so high over your heads that you have to dig up just to breathe. Still, no one deserts. No one leaves. Because as miserable as it is here, it's worse out there. Out there, people freeze alone, starve in silence. Here at least, you share the suffering. Here you feel like you're part of something real. One morning, you wake to birdsong. Not the lonely caw of a crow, but the trill of finches. You open your eyes and see light breaking through the trees. The thaw has begun. You survived. Barely. You emerge from the cold with a new kind of bond stronger than loyalty, deeper than friendship. It's something forged only through shared hardship, the kind that never breaks, even when blades do. The villagers begin to return with offerings again. A sack of apples, a cured ham. A child hands you a pair of knitted gloves. You wear them with pride, even if one is too small and the other has holes. Your crew rebuilds quickly. You fortify the shelters, add thatching, raise platforms for food storage. Bess organizes rotating watch schedules. Will repairs bows cracked by the frost. Marion doesn't smile much, but you catch her humming once as she rubs leather oil into her boots. That's enough. Then comes word that the sheriff has ordered new winter taxes. On firewood, on salt, on bread. He claims it's to help fund snow patrols, but everyone knows it's just greed. One village refuses, so he sends his men to torch their granary. You act. It's your first big strike of the year. You intercept a tax caravan on the river path. This time, you don't just rob them, you humiliate them. Marion snipes their banner down with a single shot from 50 paces. Bess flips the lead wagon into a ditch with a crowbar and sheer spite. You personally walk up to the head guard, yank the helmet from his head, and inform him that winter is over, and so is the sheriff's free ride. You leave the coins, but take every food sack and blanket they were hoarding. That night, in 4 separate villages, families eat warm meals under stolen blankets, and every item bears the same marker green arrow wrapped in ivy. The sheriff doesn't take it well. He doubles patrols, installs spies in the markets, sends troops disguised as merchants, but he's slow, sluggish. You can feel the rust in his machine. Meanwhile, your people are sharper, leaner, faster. Even the forest seems on your side. The trees bud early. The deer return. Your traps stop coming up empty. For the first time in weeks, the laughter around the fire sounds real again. Still, you carry winter with you. It lingers in the coughs, the scars, the way you all instinctively check the sky for storms. But it also brought something valuable. Perspective. You realize that being Robin Hood isn't about the gold or the glory. It's about staying through the hunger, the cold, the silence. Staying with your people even when every sensible part of you wants to run. Because that's what the nobles don't understand. They can buy swords, walls, mercenaries, but they can't buy that kind of loyalty. And they never will. The first sign that things are about to go wrong is the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy, breath-holding, birdless kind that presses on your ears like a woolen hood soaked in fear. You feel it in your gut before anything happens. The trees don't whisper. The leaves don't rustle. Even the squirrels are hiding. Something's coming. You don't know what. Not at first. But it starts with reports from your runners. One by one, your contacts go dark. A farmer who used to leave messages in the well bucket stops showing up. A washerwoman's coded thread, signaled for safe, white for warning, vanishes entirely. Then one morning, a scout comes sprinting back, pale and panicked. "They know," he gasps. "They know where we are." You don't panic. Not allowed. You gather the crew, bark orders, break down camp with brutal efficiency. No fire, no noise. You scatter the stores, destroy the trail signs, and vanish into the deeper woods. But it's too late. They come at dusk. Hundreds. Footmen, crossbowmen, trained hounds. The sheriff's banner flapping in the wind, like a smug grin stitched in gold. They don't come through the main path. They come from all directions, like a net closing in. They've been planning this, watching, waiting for you to settle, to grow roots. You break the group into 3 standard escape protocol. 1 signal means regroup. 2 means scatter and survive. You use 2. You run. Not out of fear, out of purpose. You can't fight an army in the open. Not here, not now. But they're faster than they've ever been. The hounds pick up Marion's trail. You double back to draw them off. It works, but it also costs you. An arrow slices past your arm close enough to graze. You don't stop. You don't look back. You jump a log, duck under a thorn branch, scale a ridge, and slide down the other side on your stomach, scraping skin from your elbows. You don't stop until your lungs feel like they're being wrung out. Eventually, you reunite with Will and Bess, by the old Badger Dina landmark so forgotten even squirrels avoid it. You wait there. Hours pass. Marion arrives just before dawn, breathing hard, bleeding from her shoulder. She grins anyway. You should see the hound, she mutters, collapsing into your arms. But not everyone returns. Ned's missing. So is a girl you just recruited. Tansy, barely 16. You wait a day. 2. Then the sheriff sends his message. A cart is wheeled to the edge of the woods. It carries 3 bodies. Ned is one of them. His hands are bound. His mouth is gagged with his own scarf. The others are unrecognizable. One might be Tansy. You don't know. There's a note nailed to Ned's chest. This is mercy. Next time, none. Your crew is silent as you bury the dead. No one speaks. No one breathes through their nose. Marion doesn't cry, but you see the way her fingers dig into her palms until they bleed. You sit alone for hours after the burial. Not to mourn, to decide. Because this isn't survival anymore. This is war. You gather what remains of your people. You speak softly, clearly. No theatrics, just facts. We've been playing the game by their rules, you say. Dodging, hiding, waiting. But they're not afraid of our arrows anymore. They're afraid of our idea. So let's give them more of it. You begin a new strategy. Hit and vanish. Not just noblemen's carts, but the supply lines feeding the sheriff's campaign. You poison the grain. You sabotage the wheel axles. You switch road signs and forge fake maps. One of your men rides into Nottingham disguised as a town crier and announces the sheriff's own death just to sow confusion. It works. You turn the forest into a trap. You dig pits, build false paths, construct deadfalls with sharpened stakes hidden under leaf piles. One patrol loses 5 men before they even see a single outlaw. Then you strike the sheriff's armory. It's well guarded. Stone walls, iron gates, night patrols, but they aren't watching the river beneath it. A forgotten tunnel, half flooded, leads straight under the floorboards. You swim it. The cold clutches your bones like iron tongs, but you press on. You emerge in the cellar, dripping, shivering and smiling. You set the charges Marion built using stolen gunpowder and wax. You time it perfectly. When the bells toll noon, the ground shakes. The roof goes first, then the walls. The guards barely have time to scream. 3 counties hear the blast. The sheriff is livid. He rides to the rubble himself and shouts into the wreckage like it might answer back. He starts arresting villagers at random, tortures them for information. You send back what's left of his tax books, each page torn, folded into the shape of an arrow, and burned at the edges. Still, he doesn't give up. He sends a tracker, a real one, a silent hunter known only as Black Walter. Nobody laughs at his name. He's found and killed 7 men like you in the past 5 years. No camp lasts more than a week, once he picks up a trail. You know you can't beat him by running, so you don't. You lure him. You leave false trails, muddy boots, scrap cloth, bent branches. You lead him to a clearing that looks abandoned, but beneath it, your crew waits underground, hidden in a pit camouflaged by branches and leaves. The moment he steps into the center, you spring the net. He fights like a bear, but Bess gets the drop on him. You don't kill him, but you take his boots, tie him upside down from a tree, and leave him facing west with a note pinned to his chest. We see you. No one hears from Black Walter again. The forest feels alive with resistance. Every stump is a message. Every breeze carries warning. You're not just fighting back anymore. You're winning. But you can feel something else, too. Something heavier, like the calm before a storm. You know the sheriff won't keep playing cat and mouse. The next move will be decisive. He'll throw everything he has at you. Every soldier, every coin, every ounce of cruelty. And when he does, you'll be ready. You've had time to prepare, to dig in, to wait, because the forest belongs to you now, and it's been hungry. You smell the storm before it arrives earthy, metallic, charged. The forest stiffens, the birds vanish again, even the wind seems to curl in on itself, afraid to breathe too loud. The sheriff is done playing. No more patrols, no more traps. He's bringing everything. A full regiment of soldiers, siege gear, dogs, banners stitched in silk and dipped in arrogance. And at the centre of it all, in gleaming armour that doesn't match the mud around it, rides the Sheriff of Nottingham. You hear them before you see them drums echoing through the trees, boots trampling ferns, the clatter of weapons born for war. This isn't an arrest, it's an execution. They're here to end Robin Hood, to tear Sherwood open, root by root, and drag your name out like a weed. You've prepared for this. You knew it would come. The traps are in place. The deadfalls, the spike pits, the false trails that lead into bogs so deep even the sheriff's proudest knight will beg for rope. You've spent weeks reinforcing hideouts, planting signals, digging fallback tunnels under tree roots and thorns. And most importantly, you've pulled your people close. No more distant scouts or scattered bands. Everyone is here, in the heart of Sherwood, waiting. The sheriff calls out into the woods on the first morning. Robin of Locksley, he bellows, voice oily with triumph. I offer you mercy surrender now, and only some of you will hang. Will leans toward you and mutters, he's such a people person. Bess snorts. Even in the face of death, your family keeps its humour. You don't answer him. Not yet. Instead, you begin the dance. The first strike comes from above. Marion drops a burning flask onto a forward supply cart. Flames roar up like a dragon's breath. Horses panic. Soldiers scatter. From the trees, your archers strike arrows, black-feathered and silent, finding targets in the chaos. Then you vanish. Hit and fade. Classic Sherwood. They try to follow. They fall into the traps. One whole squad vanishes into a sinkhole you baited with sacks of fake grain. Another staggers into a clearing only to find themselves surrounded by your people masked, silent, eyes full of fury. You take their weapons, their pride. Leave them bound and unharmed. You want the sheriff's men scared, not slaughtered. But not all of them are lucky. Some fight back too hard. Some try to harm villagers. Some go too far. Those ones don't return. Still, you can't stop them all. They keep coming, day after day. By the fourth sunrise, the trees echo with the sounds of axes and torches. They're trying to burn you out, set fire to the forest, smoke you like foxes from your burrows. That's when you answer. You ride out at dawn, alone, through the mist, dressed not in green, but in ash grey. You make no attempt to hide. You stand atop a fallen log where the sheriff's tent line just begins. You raise your bow and aim up, not down-firing a single arrow wrapped in cloth and dipped in sap. It arcs high and lands harmlessly in a tree 50 yards behind their line. The sheriff's soldiers laugh. He does not, because he knows what that arrow means. You've marked their position, and you know they're already surrounded. Your people rise from the ferns, from the trees, from burrows and brambles and branches above. They don't attack. They watch. Dozens of them, maybe more. All silent, all still. The message is clear. You could have ended them, but you didn't. The sheriff rides forward alone, sword drawn. His face is red, twisted, eyes wild. This forest is not a kingdom, he snarls. And you are not a king. You tilt your head. Exactly, you reply. That's why people trust me. He charges. You don't move. Bess knocks him clean from his saddle with a sap-covered branch. He lands with a grunt, winded and stunned, and Marion calmly steps forward to remove his sword. She tosses it into the underbrush like a twig. You lean over him. Tell Prince John, you say softly, that the people remember who fights for them, and they remember who doesn't. You don't kill him. You tie him to a tree. just like he did to your friends. And then, with one loud whistle, your people vanish. By midday, the army is retreating, bruised, humiliated, lost. The forest swallows their tracks, their pride. But you know it's not the end. You return to your camp and find it eerily still, quiet. There's a strange weight in the air. Marion stands by the fire with a letter in hand. She doesn't speak, just hands it to you. The wax seal bears the mark of the lion heart. Richard has returned. The letter is short, a summons. You've been noticed, not just as a nuisance, but as an asset. Your name now carries weight beyond the woods. And with it, a choice. You can stay here, in the mud and moss, with your people and your cause. Or you can walk into the halls of power, into courts and councils, where the game is more dangerous than any ambush. Your crew waits for your answer. No one pressures you. They'll follow wherever you lead. But as you stare into the fire that night, something in your chest settles. You didn't just fight the sheriff. You showed the people that the forest can protect them, that justice doesn't only wear a crown, and that an outlaw with purpose is more powerful than a noble with land. You've fought, and for now at least, you've won. There is a stillness in Sherwood you've never felt before. Not the tense quiet of waiting, not the fearful hush before a raid, but a kind of peace, like the trees themselves have exhaled. The war is not over, how could it ever be? But the worst of it has passed. The sheriff is disgraced, retreating behind his stone walls with fewer soldiers, less swagger. Prince John, humiliated by Richard's return, has had his leash yanked tight, and the people, they still struggle, still starve in places, still weep when their coin is gone. But now, they also hope, because of you. You hear your name sung in taverns you've never visited. Children dress in rags and tie green ribbons around their heads, laughing as they chase each other through the village commons. Some wear makeshift bows, some carry wooden swords. All of them shout the same thing: I'm Robin Hood. It should feel good, and in a way it does, but it also feels heavy. You never wanted to be a legend. You just wanted things to be fair. You wanted the hungry fed, the beaten protected, the corrupt afraid to sleep soundly. But legends twist. They grow too big for the truth. People say you never missed a shot, that you once leapt a castle wall while playing a lute, that you're immortal, a ghost, a demon, a saint. And now the crown wants to meet you. King Richard's men arrive at the edge of the forest, dressed in royal livery. They bring horses, cloaks, parchment, a royal seal. They don't demand you've made it clear you don't respond to demands. They request a parley, a pardon, maybe more. Tuck is thrilled. Recognition from the king himself, he says, beaming. A chance to make this official, maybe even land and title. Will looks skeptical. And what happens when they ask him to tax his own estates? He mutters. Kings don't share. They collect. Bess doesn't say much, just sharpens her knife slower than usual. Marion walks with you that night, deep into the trees, where no one else follows. She moves quietly, but every step seems louder in the growing hush between you. You could take the offer, she says at last. Be a noble again. A legitimate one. You raise an eyebrow. You think I want a castle? No, she says. But I think you want to stop living with your back against a tree. She's not wrong. But you also know the forest changed you, molded you, not just into a fighter or a leader, but into a witness. You've seen too much to sit comfortably in a silk chair and pretend taxes are just numbers. Every coin you'd collect would echo with the voice of a starving mother, or a boy whipped for stealing a crust of bread. Could you do it? Could you forget? You decide to go to the meeting, not to accept, just to listen. You ride out at dawn with Marion beside you, hood low, boots still muddy from last night's patrol. The king waits in a small tent, alone save for 2 guards and a scribe. He's broad-shouldered, sunburnt, not nearly as regal as the paintings made him seem, but his eyes are clear, sharp, tired. You've caused me a great deal of trouble, he says, not unkindly. You don't apologize. He offers you land, a title, a full pardon. You could be Sir Robin again, Lord of Locksley, Steward of the Forest, Knight of the Crown. No more hiding, no more running. But at a cost. There must be order, he says. You can't have subjects taking the law into their own hands. You look him in the eye and say, then maybe make the law worth trusting. There's a silence. Then he laughs. It's not a cruel laugh. Not dismissive, just tired. You won't take it, will you? He says. You shake your head. Then what do you want? You think for a long moment. Then you answer. Leave the forest alone. Leave the villages alone. Let them grow without your collectors choking them every spring. Let people live. He considers it, then nods once. A handshake seals the moment. And that's it. You ride back into Sherwood. Still an outlaw. Still a shadow, but now a shadow the king respects. You don't tell the others everything. Only that the forest is safe for now. And that's enough. Your camp changes again. Quieter, older. Some of your crew begin to move on. Will takes a group south to help other villages. Tuck builds a small chapel at the edge of the woods, where he tends to sick travelers and orphans. Bess vanishes one morning and returns 2 weeks later with a basket full of scrolls. They're laws, she says with a grin. I'm going to rewrite them. Little Ned's hat stays hanging from the same branch. No one touches it. And Marion? She stays. Not because she has to, but because you ask. You grow older, wiser, maybe a little slower, but the forest still knows your name. And if the sheriff ever dares to return, it knows exactly how to call you back. You're Robin Hood. You're not a hero. You're not a thief. You're a promise. A green shadow in a crooked world. A whisper in the branches. A reason to believe. So now, as the last embers flicker in your campfire and the trees settle back into silence, you stretch out on your bed of moss and listen to the forest breathe. The hard bark beneath you is no throne, and your cloak is no crown, but you are warm, and you are free. Above, the leaves shift in gentle rhythm, like waves lapping against a shore made of stars. The wind no longer howls, it sighs, soft, safe. You close your eyes, and the night hums around you, the rustle of mice in the underbrush, the distant call of an owl, the steady exhale of someone you trust, sleeping nearby. Tomorrow will bring more to do. It always does. The fight never really ends not when justice is a flame that must be tended daily. But tonight, you can rest. You've earned it. You've fought for more than your own skin. You've carved safety into the wild and filled it with hope. You've shown the world that kindness can wear a hood and carry a bow. And maybe, just maybe, some part of you will live forever in these woods. A shadow in the trees, a grin behind a mask, a name passed from mouth to mouth by firelight, long after your bones return to earth. So let go now. Let your breath slow. Let your limbs relax into the leaf-laced earth. You're home, and the forest is watching over you. Good night,